Imagine the endless sands of Egypt, bathed in the golden light of the rising sun. Amidst this majestic silence, they rise, the pyramids. These gigantic stone structures, built thousands of years ago, still hold many mysteries. How were ancient people, without modern technology, able to create these monumental structures that seem carved from eternity itself? What inspired them to undertake such a monumental undertaking? And what role did these stone giants play in the lives and beliefs of the ancient Egyptians? Today, we will journey through the millennia to experience the magic of ancient stones and delve into the mystery of pyramid construction. Ancient Egypt is a civilization that gave the world astonishing achievements in architecture, art, and science. Among the diverse heritage of this civilization, the pyramids occupy a special place. They are not simply the tombs of the pharaohs, but also symbols of power, divinity, and the pursuit of eternity. Their construction required colossal effort, profound knowledge, and impeccable organization. Understanding how the pyramids were built opens the door to the world of the ancient Egyptians, allowing us to better understand their culture, their worldview, and their place in history. Our journey begins long before the Great Pyramids of Giza. To understand how this monumental architecture emerged, we must go back to its very origins. The first tombs of pharaohs and nobles were not as grand as we might imagine. They were called mastabas, rectangular structures with flat roofs built of mud brick or stone. Burial chambers were located underground. Mastabas were common throughout the early dynastic period until approximately the beginning of the 3rd millennium BCE. However, over time, architects began to seek new forms that would better reflect the ruler's status and his connection to the gods. This search led to the development of step pyramids. The most striking example of this evolution is the Pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara. This structure, built around 2738 BCE, was a true breakthrough in architecture. Its creator was the brilliant architect Imhotep, who was later deified. Imhotep combined several mastabas of varying sizes, one above the other, creating a stepped structure that resembled a giant staircase leading to heaven. This step pyramid became the harbinger of the ideal form sought by the ancient Egyptians. The step pyramids, while impressive, were only an intermediate stage. The next step toward perfection was the creation of the smooth faces we associate with pyramids today. And here we come to the most famous and enigmatic structure, the Great Pyramid of Giza, also known as the Pyramid of Khufu. It was built around 2560 BC, during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. This pyramid is astounding in its scale. Its original height was approximately 146.5 meters, and its base covered an area of over 23,000 square meters. It consisted of 2,300,000 stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons. Imagine this titanic labor. The Great Pyramid contains complex systems of corridors and chambers, including the pharaoh's burial chamber, the so-called king's chamber, and the queen's chamber. These interior spaces, despite their outwardly simple form, demonstrate astonishing precision in engineering. Questions about how the ancient Egyptians were able to construct such a colossal structure continue to excite researchers. One of the most intriguing aspects of pyramid construction is the question of the methods the ancient Egyptians used to lift and move enormous stone blocks. Despite the absence of the wheel in construction, they developed ingenious engineering solutions. Ramps are considered the most likely method for lifting the blocks. Various hypotheses exist regarding the shape and design of these ramps: straight, spiral, or a combination. The use of levers and sleds to help move the heavy stones along the paved tracks is also suggested. Stoneworking also required a high degree of skill. Ancient Egyptians used copper tools, such as chisels and hammers, to work softer rocks like limestone. For working the hard granite used for inner chambers and sarcophagi, more complex methods were employed, possibly involving abrasive materials like sand and more durable tools. No less important is the question of the materials from which the pyramids were built. The primary building stone for most pyramids was limestone, quarried near the construction sites. Higher quality white limestone from Tura, located across the Nile, was used for the cladding. For the inner chambers and sarcophagi, hard granite was often used, transported from Aswan, located in southern Egypt, hundreds of kilometers from Giza. Imagine these enormous stone blocks being transported by barge down the river and then transported to the construction site. And of course, the issue of labor cannot be ignored. A common myth holds that the pyramids were built by slaves. However, archaeological discoveries in recent decades completely refute this theory. Excavations of workers' settlements located near the pyramids have revealed the remains of people who were well fed and received medical care. These were skilled laborers, artisans, and farmers who were brought in for construction during the Nile floods, when agricultural work was suspended. They worked in organized teams and received wages in the form of food and other goods. The construction of the pyramids was more of a national project than an act of enslavement. Managing such a massive project required incredible logistics and planning. Thousands of workers, their provision of food, water, housing, and tools, all of this required a complex resource management system. The ancient Egyptian state possessed a sophisticated bureaucracy that allowed for the efficient organization of labor and the allocation of resources. Construction supervision, material accounting, and quality control all were part of this grandiose plan. Beyond the engineering and logistical aspects, the construction of the pyramids had profound religious and symbolic significance. In ancient Egyptian belief, the pyramid was not simply a tomb, but a bridge between worlds, a link between the earthly realm and the afterlife. It symbolized the ascent of the pharaoh's soul to the gods, particularly the sun god Ra. The pyramid's shape may have reflected the primordial mound, which, according to Egyptian cosmogony, arose from the primordial chaos of water. The pyramid was part of a funerary complex that included temples, tombs, and other structures designed to ensure the pharaoh's eternal life and well-being in the afterlife. To achieve such results, ancient builders used a variety of tools and technologies. Archaeological finds include copper chisels, saws, drills, stone hammers, wooden levers, and sleds. Reconstructions of their construction methods demonstrate that the Egyptians possessed a profound understanding of mechanics and geometry. For example, methods based on water level observations were used to level the pyramid foundations. The precision with which the stone blocks were cut and installed amazes even modern engineers. Naturally, such grandiose structures have given rise to numerous alternative theories and myths, from suggestions of alien assistance to the existence of highly advanced, now lost civilizations. However, scientific research based on archaeological data, written sources, and engineering analysis consistently confirms that the pyramids were built by the ancient Egyptians using the technologies and resources available to them. These theories, while intriguing, are not supported by the facts. Interestingly, pyramidal shapes are not unique to Egypt. Similar monumental structures were erected in other cultures as well. In Mesopotamia, ziggurats, stepped temple towers, were built. Although different in purpose and design, they also had a pyramidal shape. In Mesoamerica, in what is now Mexico and Central America, the Mayan, Aztec, and other civilizations built their own pyramids, often serving as foundations for temples. Comparing these structures helps us understand how universal is the human need to create monumental forms that reflect our desire for eternity and connection. And so, we are transported to the very beginning of this great history, when the idea of grandiose stone structures destined for eternity was only just beginning to take shape. The path to pyramid perfection was gradual, evolutionary. The ancient Egyptians, who deeply revered their deceased rulers and sought to ensure them a dignified afterlife, began with simpler tomb designs. The earliest monumental tombs were the so-called mastabas. These structures, whose name derives from the Arabic word meaning bench, were rectangular, flat-roofed structures with sloping walls, built of mud brick or stone. Below ground were burial chambers, while above ground were rooms for sacrifices and memorial rituals. Mastabas were common throughout much of Egypt's early history, and many can still be seen today, for example, in the Saqqara necropolis. Each mastaba was not simply a tomb, but a kind of home for the deceased, a place where their soul could receive offerings from the living. But as time passed, the ambitions of the pharaohs, their desire to surpass their predecessors, grew. Architects and engineers sought new forms capable of expressing the ruler's grandeur and divinity. And then, around 1717 BC, during the Third Dynasty, a true breakthrough occurred. This architectural revolution began with a name forever etched in Egyptian history, Pharaoh Djoser. Djoser reigned for approximately 27 years, and it was during his reign that the idea of building the pyramid was conceived. His chief architect, advisor, and perhaps the inspiration for this grandiose project was a man of extraordinary intellect and talent, Imhotep. Imhotep's name became synonymous with wisdom and architecture. He was not only an architect, but also a physician and priest. And later, a testament to his exceptional importance, he was deified and revered as the god of wisdom. Imhotep proposed something entirely new to Pharaoh Djoser. Instead of a single mastaba, he proposed building several mastabas, one above the other, gradually decreasing in size. This was a bold solution that transformed the mastaba's flat roof into a stepped structure. Thus, the first step pyramid was born. Located in Saqqara, it stood approximately 60 meters tall. This pyramid, known as the Pyramid of Djoser, became the first monumental structure in history built entirely of stone. Imagine this process. Thousands of workers, supervised by experienced overseers, quarried stone, cut it, and moved it. This wasn't just a construction project. It was a grand event, uniting the country. Building the step pyramid required new methods, a new understanding of labor organization. Stone blocks, unlike adobe bricks, were much heavier and required more sophisticated tools and techniques. The step pyramid of Djoser was more than just a tomb. The entire complex at Saqqara surrounding the pyramid was enormous and included temples, courtyards, corridors, and other structures designed for funerary rituals and maintaining the pharaoh's cult after his death. This was the place where the pharaoh, according to Egyptian belief, would continue his existence in the afterlife, receiving everything necessary for eternal life. Evolution didn't stop with the step pyramid. The idea of perfection, the pursuit of an ideal form, continued to inspire architects. The next step was the smoothing of the steps. Imagine how builders could gradually fill in the corners between the steps, gradually approaching a smooth, triangular shape. This process likely occurred gradually, based on experience gained from building the step pyramids. One of the first examples of such a smoothed pyramid is considered to be the Pyramid of Sneferu in Dashur, known as the Bent or Pink Pyramid. Its construction likely began as a step pyramid, but the angle was later adjusted, resulting in its unique, slightly curved shape. Then, under the same pharaoh Sneferu, the first true smooth pyramid was built, the Northern Pyramid in Dashur, also known as the Red Pyramid. Its perfect shape and dimensions foreshadowed the greatest pyramids yet to be built. This transition from mastabas to step pyramids and then to smooth pyramids demonstrates not only the development of the ancient Egyptians' architectural and engineering skills, but also their profound cosmogonic beliefs. The pyramid, with its upward thrust, symbolized the pharaoh's ascent to heaven, to the gods. It was a bridge between the earthly and divine worlds, an eternal home for the ruler, who, after death, became part of the pantheon of gods. The daily lives of the people involved in these grandiose projects were, of course, very diverse. For great architects and craftsmen like Imhotep, it was a life dedicated to learning, creating, and serving the pharaoh. For the thousands of workers who quarried the stone, moved it, and erected the walls, it was hard labor, but, as recent research shows, not slave labor. They lived in specially constructed villages and received food and medical care. Their labor was organized, and they undoubtedly took pride in their participation in the creation of timeless structures. And so we approach the very heart of ancient Egyptian monumentality, what has become synonymous with eternity and perfection, the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is not only the most famous stone structure left to us by the ancient world, but also a monument to human thought, organization, and craftsmanship that still evokes admiration. The Great Pyramid, also known as the Pyramid of Khufu, was completed around 2563 BCE. It was built for Pharaoh Khufu, the second ruler of the fourth dynasty of the Old Kingdom. Imagine that time, thousands of people united by a common goal, toiling under the scorching Egyptian sun to create something that would endure for centuries. This pyramid is astounding in its size. Originally, it stood approximately 146.5 meters tall, with each side of its base measuring approximately 230 meters. If we could see it in its original state, it would be clad in smooth white limestone slabs that would reflect the sunlight, making it radiant and majestic. Unfortunately, much of this cladding was removed in later times for the construction of other structures. The interior of the Great Pyramid is no less mysterious. It is not, as one might expect, a solid block of stone. 3 main chambers are hidden within. The Pharaoh's burial chamber, known as the King's Chamber, located high within the pyramid. The Queen's Chamber, located below. And the so-called subterranean chamber, carved into the rock beneath the base. Between these chambers lie corridors and galleries, including the famous Great Gallery, a tall, narrow passage with an overhanging vault that seems to lead to the very heart of the pyramid. The remains of a red granite sarcophagus were discovered in the King's Chamber, likely placed there during the construction phase. These interior chambers, their precise purpose and symbolism are still the subject of research. Why this particular configuration? What role did these chambers and corridors play in the funerary rituals and beliefs of the ancient Egyptians? The answers to these questions help us better understand their worldview. Imagine how those who built this wonder lived. They weren't just laborers, they were skilled artisans, masons, engineers, surveyors, and, of course, a vast army of people engaged in auxiliary work. Archaeological excavations near the pyramids have uncovered the remains of settlements where the builders lived. These weren't meager huts, but organized dwellings, bakeries, and warehouses. Evidence has been found that the workers received regular food supplies, including bread, fish, and beer, as well as medical care. This suggests that the construction of the pyramids wasn't an act of oppression, but a large-scale state project that required care for its workers. The daily life of such a builder, of course, differed from that of a pharaoh or a priest. It was labor that required physical strength and endurance. But it was also labor that was believed to bring a sense of pride and belonging to something great and eternal. They knew that their efforts perpetuated the memory of their ruler and contributed to the preservation of order and prosperity throughout Egypt. Every stage of construction required meticulous planning. From stone quarrying to transportation and installation, everything was meticulously planned. Engineers and architects had to consider numerous factors: rock strength, slope angles, and foundation loads. The Great Pyramid is not only a symbol, but also the result of a colossal engineering effort. These ancient builders possessed knowledge we are only just beginning to comprehend. They knew how to work stone like no one else. Using simple but effective tools like copper chisels, stone hammers, and wooden wedges, they allowed them to craft massive blocks with remarkable precision. The methods used to lift and move these blocks are still debated. They likely employed complex systems of ramps, levers, and perhaps even sleds pulled over damp sand to reduce friction. The Great Pyramid of Giza is more than just a tomb. It is a symbol of the pursuit of perfection, eternity, and divine attainment. Its perfectly balanced proportions, its monumentality, and its durability all reflect the profound philosophical and religious beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. It was part of a larger complex that included mortuary temples, satellite pyramids, and causeways, creating a sacred space associated with the cult of the pharaoh and his afterlife. It is this majestic structure, its scale and complexity, that lays the foundation for understanding how the ancient Egyptians achieved such heights in architecture and engineering. It was no miracle, but the result of painstaking labor, accumulated knowledge, and ingenious organization. Imagine enormous stone blocks, each weighing several tons, slowly but surely rising. How do they reach such heights? This is one of the most fascinating mysteries of ancient construction, and today we'll delve into it to understand how the ancient Egyptians managed the truly titanic scale of their structures. We've already discussed how the Great Pyramid of Giza isn't just a pile of stones, but the result of profound engineering calculations and mastery. But how exactly were these calculations brought to life? How were these massive blocks moved and raised tens of meters? Scientists and archaeologists have studied this question for centuries, and today we have enough evidence to reconstruct the basic methods. Ramps were undoubtedly the ancient builders' primary tool. These weren't just mounds of sand and rubble. Imagine long, gently sloping roads that encircled the pyramid as it rose. These ramps could have been straight, spiral, or even a combination of both. There are various theories about what exactly these ramps looked like. One of the most widespread theories suggests a straight ramp running from the quarry to the pyramid. However, to lift the blocks to such a great height, such a ramp would have had to be incredibly long and occupy a huge space. A more likely theory is a spiral structure that would have wrapped around the pyramid. This would have allowed for a smaller area to be used and the blocks to be raised gradually. Another interesting hypothesis suggests the presence of an internal ramp. According to this theory, the builders could have erected internal walls and corridors, creating a kind of spiral tunnel within the pyramid itself, through which the blocks were transported. This would have been more efficient in terms of space utilization and protection for the workers from the sun. But how exactly were the blocks moved along these ramps? Simple yet ingenious mechanisms came to the rescue. Enormous wooden sleds were likely used to transport the blocks. To reduce friction, the road in front of the sleds was generously sprinkled with water. We know that wet sand is much less viscous than dry sand, which significantly facilitated traction. Imagine hundreds, if not thousands, of people pulling these sleds in unison. It was a sight to behold. In addition to sleds, levers were likely also used. Long wooden logs, used as levers, could have helped maneuver blocks, set them in place, or make small movements. Copper or stone wedges driven into cracks could also have been used to split the stone or create a fulcrum. As for the tools, they were relatively simple but extremely effective. The primary materials were stone and copper. Stone hammers and chisels were used to work the limestone that made up the bulk of the pyramids. For harder rocks, such as granite, which was used for interior decoration and cladding, copper tools, possibly tipped with diamonds, or even simply sand as an abrasive, were used. Imagine the craftsmen patiently and precisely honing these gigantic blocks, creating perfectly smooth surfaces. It's important to understand that all these methods required incredible coordination and planning. No ramps or levers could be effective without precise organization of labor. Thousands of workers had to work as a single mechanism, following the instructions of foremen and overseers. The role of water shouldn't be forgotten either. Water wasn't just used to reduce friction. It was also used to cool tools and workers in hot climates. Entire systems of canals may have existed to deliver water to the construction site. And, of course, the power of human labor should not be underestimated. While we tend to admire technology, the construction of the pyramids was based on a colossal, well-organized workforce. These were not slaves, as is often mistakenly assumed, but skilled workers, artisans, and peasants who toiled for the good of their pharaoh and their state. These ancient engineers and architects possessed an astonishing understanding of physics and mechanics. They knew how to distribute weight, how to use inclined planes, and how to create stable structures. Their solutions were based on centuries of experience and observation of nature. Every block, every ramp, every lever, all of this was part of a complex system aimed at achieving one great goal: to immortalize the pharaoh and ensure his rightful place in the afterlife. And it is precisely in these meticulously designed engineering solutions that lies the key to understanding how the ancient Egyptians were able to construct these monumental structures that continue to amaze us to this day. Stone that has conquered the ages. Research into the sources of limestone, granite, and other materials, their transportation and processing. Imagine standing at the foot of one of these majestic structures, your gaze gazing upward toward the sky. What do you feel as you gaze upon these gigantic blocks, carved from stone seemingly destined to last forever? These are not just stones. They are witnesses to millennia, silent storytellers of the lives and beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. To understand how they managed to build these masterpieces, we need to look at where they sourced their materials and how they crafted them. The primary building material for the pyramids was, of course, limestone. This relatively soft and easily worked stone was quarried in quarries located very close to the construction sites. The most famous of these quarries were located near Giza and on the Abu Sir Plateau. Imagine thousands of people working under the scorching sun, carefully carving enormous blocks. They used simple but effective tools: copper or bronze chisels, and hammers made of hard stones such as dolerite. Each block was meticulously calibrated, its edges aligned with astonishing precision. But not all stone was created equal. A nobler and more durable material, white limestone from Tura, located on the east bank of the Nile, was used for the pyramid cladding, interior chambers, and sarcophagi. This limestone was distinguished by its fine texture and dazzling whiteness. It was quarried in special deeper quarries. It is still possible to distinguish this stone from the coarser one used for interior masonry by examining the surviving sections of the cladding. However, granite played a special role. This hard, almost indestructible stone, quarried in Aswan in southern Egypt, was used for the most critical parts of the pyramids, lining the king's chambers, creating sarcophagi, and the massive lintels over the entrance corridors. Granite presented a challenge for ancient craftsmen.
Working it required completely different technologies and immense patience. Imagine workers using hard stone balls and abrasive mixtures like wet sand, slowly, centimeter by centimeter, carving these gigantic monoliths from the rock. Transporting these colossal structures is a whole other story. From the quarries to the Nile, and then along the river to the construction site, the stones traveled tens, sometimes hundreds of kilometers. Special barges were used to transport the granite blocks, which could weigh tens of tons. During the Nile's flood season, when the water level rose, these barges could approach as close as possible to the construction site, significantly facilitating further transportation.
How were these heavy objects transported overland? This brings us back to the discussion of ramps and perhaps the role of water. Archaeological finds indicate that the stones could have been transported along specially constructed roads. The blocks were placed on wooden sleds, then pulled by thousands of people using ropes and perhaps lubricating the track with water or clay to reduce friction. Imagine this scene. Slowly but surely, these stone giants move forward like living beings, obeying the will of their creators. Stoneworking was a process that required not only physical strength, but also profound knowledge. The Egyptians knew how to work with various types of stone, how to shape them, and how to polish surfaces to a mirror shine. To create smooth walls and even corners, they used a kind of level, wooden or stone devices filled with water, which allowed them to maintain horizontal alignment. For example, millions of stone blocks were used in the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the most grandiose of all. The bulk of the stone was limestone from local quarries, but white limestone from Tura was used for the cladding, and granite from Aswan was used for the interior chambers and the sarcophagus. Imagine that each of these blocks, before taking its place in the eternal structure, traveled a long journey from bedrock to the heights. These materials weren't just raw materials, they carried sacred meaning. White limestone symbolized purity and light, granite eternity and strength. The choice of stone, its placement in the structure, all of this was part of a larger design, part of a grand ritual designed to ensure the pharaoh's immortality. The daily lives of the people who quarried and processed these stones were likely very difficult, but at the same time they were organized. Entire settlements of builders existed, where they lived, ate, and received necessary assistance. These weren't just slaves, but people fulfilling an important state and religious mission. They received their share of bread, beer, and fish. Their labor was paid, and they were part of a large, well-coordinated mechanism. Every stone you see today bears witness to the incredible ingenuity, tenacity, and organization of the ancient Egyptians. More than just a building material, it's a piece of history carved in stone that continues to speak to us across the millennia. Understanding where these stones came from and how they were crafted helps us better appreciate the scale and complexity of these ancient structures. Who then were the builders of these majestic structures? This question has troubled many, and for a long time the prevailing idea was that the pyramids were erected by the hands of thousands of slaves, exhausted and oppressed.
However, modern archaeological finds and a careful analysis of historical sources paint a completely different picture. This was not an army of slaves, but rather a well-organized, disciplined workforce composed of free Egyptians. These people were more than just performers. They were part of a vast state project with profound religious and cultural significance. They were artisans, stonemasons, carpenters, blacksmiths, and even simple laborers who performed support functions. Many of them were seasonal workers who arrived for construction during the Nile floods, when agricultural work was suspended. This allowed them to earn a living and contribute to the great cause. Archaeological excavations at Giza and other sites have uncovered entire settlements of construction workers. These settlements were well planned and included residential buildings, bakeries, breweries, butcher shops, and even hospitals. Remains of people who had received medical care were found, including evidence of fractures being treated. This indicates that the work of the builders was treated with care, and their health was essential for the successful completion of the project. The builders' diet was also well organized. Analysis of skeletal remains shows that they received sufficient protein from fish and meat, as well as carbohydrates from bread and beer. Beer, incidentally, was not just a beverage, but an important source of calories and nutrients, and also played a role in hygiene, as Nile water could be unsafe. The social status of the builders likely varied. There were, of course, simple laborers, skilled craftsmen, and overseers. However, the very fact that they were employed by the state and received food, housing, and medical care suggests that they were not slaves in the conventional sense. Their labor was paid, and they fulfilled a sacred duty to the pharaoh and the gods. Imagine the daily life of such a builder. He wakes at dawn in his simple but sturdy home. After breakfast, consisting of bread and perhaps a little fish, he heads to the construction site. There, under the supervision of a foreman, he joins his team. The work was hard, requiring strength and endurance. But perhaps it was also a joy, for everyone involved in the pyramid's construction felt part of something grand and eternal. These people, whose names we may never know, were true heroes of their time. With their own hands, their labor, and their perseverance, they created monuments that still inspire us today. They were more than just workers. They were creators, whose story is inextricably linked with the history of ancient Egypt. Their lives, their work, their faith, all of this became an integral part of the great legacy the ancient Egyptians left us. Understanding who built the pyramids helps us gain a deeper understanding of ancient Egyptian society, its values, and its organizational capabilities. These are not just stones. They are a testament to the human spirit, its striving for greatness and eternity. Imagine a vast undertaking, the likes of which had never been seen in the ancient world. The construction of such colossal structures as the pyramids required not only brilliant architecture and masterful masonry, but also an incredibly complex system of planning and organization. It was a true feat of logistics, demonstrating a profound understanding of resource and human resource management. The scale of the work is staggering. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, required approximately 2 million stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons.
Some blocks, such as the granite slabs in the burial chamber, weighed tens of tons. Consider the effort required to quarry these stones, process them, transport them to the construction site, and lift them to such heights. All this complex activity was under the close supervision of the central government. The pharaoh, as supreme ruler, was the primary commissioner and initiator of the construction. But the officials and scribes appointed by him were responsible for the project's implementation. They drew up plans, assigned tasks, and oversaw the supply of materials and provisions. Scribes played a key role in this process. These educated people were the true administrators of antiquity. They kept records of everything, from the amount of stones delivered to the construction site to the rations issued to the workers. Their work was meticulous and responsible, as the smooth functioning of the entire enterprise depended on the accuracy of their records. Providing food for thousands of workers was one of the most difficult tasks. They required large quantities of bread, beer, vegetables, and fish daily. Extensive agricultural lands belonging to the temples and the pharaoh were used for this purpose. Special teams were tasked with harvesting, processing, and delivering the crops to the construction site. Bread was baked in enormous ovens, and beer was brewed in large quantities. This wasn't just food, it was part of a complex system for keeping the vast army of construction workers productive. Providing workers with housing was equally important. Entire settlements sprang up near construction sites. These settlements weren't just temporary camps, but rather organized towns. They contained workers' houses, workshops, warehouses, rest areas, and even hospitals. Archaeological excavations of such settlements, for example at Giza, have allowed us to learn about the builders' lives. They lived in simple but sturdy houses, often consisting of just a few rooms. Water and sewage systems were well established, indicating a high level of organization. To maintain order and discipline on the construction site, a clear hierarchy existed. High-ranking officials were at the top, responsible for overall management. Below them were overseers, who directly supervised teams of workers. There were also skilled craftsmen, such as stonemasons, carpenters, and engineers, who were responsible for specific tasks. It's important to understand that this entire system was built on the principles of centralized planning. Resources were mobilized from across the country. Quarries located throughout Egypt supplied the necessary stone. The stone cutters who worked in these quarries were skilled craftsmen who knew how to carve blocks of the required shape and size. Transporting the stone was a complex task in itself. Blocks quarried in remote quarries, such as granite from Aswan, were transported down the Nile on special barges. This required navigational skills and precise timing, taking into account the river's seasonal floods. At the construction site, the stones were moved using rollers, levers, and possibly primitive lifting mechanisms. All these processes required coordination and interaction between different groups of people. Scribes, managers, craftsmen, and workers all were part of a single organism, working toward a common goal. This was a testament to the remarkable organizational skills of the ancient Egyptians. Even something as seemingly simple as water supply required a well-thought-out system. The builders needed to drink and also use water for various purposes on the construction site. Canals and reservoirs were installed to collect and distribute the water. Imagine how challenging it was to manage such a vast number of people and resources. It required not only administrative skills, but also a deep understanding of human psychology, motivation, and organization. The ancient Egyptians mastered this task brilliantly, creating monuments that stand to this day. This system of planning and organization was not simply a means to an end, but a reflection of the very essence of ancient Egyptian society. It was a society where order, hierarchy, and teamwork were valued above all else. The construction of the pyramids became the culmination of these values, the embodiment of the desire for eternity and grandeur. By studying this complex logistics, we gain an understanding of the sheer scale of ancient Egypt's administrative machinery. This wasn't just construction. It was an entire industry, organized at the highest level, capable of tackling tasks of colossal scale. And all this took place thousands of years ago, before modern technology and communications existed. It's truly astounding. The ancient Egyptians possessed a remarkable understanding of the world, imbued with a profound spirituality. The pyramids, these majestic structures, were not simply tombs for the pharaohs, but also complex, symbolic bridges connecting the earthly world with the world of the gods and the afterlife. For them, the cosmos was an ordered whole, and the pyramid played a key role in maintaining this order. Ancient Egyptian beliefs were based on cosmogonic myths. They believed that at the beginning of time, only the primordial ocean of none existed. From it arose the primordial hill, Ben Ben, which became the first solid landmass. The sun god Ra, emerging from this hill, initiated the creation of the world. The shape of the pyramid, according to many researchers, was a direct reference to this sacred hill, Ben Ben. It symbolized ascent, the rise toward the sun, toward divine light. The pharaoh, as the earthly incarnation of a god, was expected to continue his journey to the gods after death to ensure the well-being and prosperity of Egypt. The pyramid became his means of transportation, his personal ascent to the celestial realm. Inside the pyramid were burial chambers, the pharaoh's sarcophagus, and treasures and objects believed to be needed in the afterlife. These objects, whether gold jewelry, furniture, food, or even statues of servants, were intended to ensure the pharaoh's comfortable existence in the afterlife. Funeral rituals were extremely important. They began at the moment of the pharaoh's death and could last for months. Mummification, the process of preserving the body, was one of the key stages. The ancient Egyptians believed that the pharaoh's soul, the Ka, needed a body to survive and travel to the afterlife. Therefore, the body was carefully prepared, preserving it as lifelike as possible. The mummy was then placed in a sarcophagus, which, in turn, could be placed within several stone boxes. The entire pyramid, with its complex internal structure, corridors, and chambers, was conceived as a protective structure. It was intended to protect the pharaoh's mummy and treasures from robbers and oblivion. It was believed that disturbing the pharaoh's body could lead to chaos and a breakdown in cosmic order. Therefore, the builders placed great emphasis on the tomb's strength and security. The walls of the pyramid's interior chambers were often decorated with hieroglyphs and images. These inscriptions, known as the pyramid texts, contained magical incantations, hymns to the gods, and descriptions of the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife. They served as a kind of guide for the deceased, helping them overcome obstacles and avoid dangers on the path to eternal life. These texts, dating back to the Old Kingdom around 2500 BC, provide invaluable insights into the religious beliefs and ideas of the ancient Egyptians. The pyramid's symbolism also extended to its orientation. Most great pyramids are oriented to the cardinal directions with astonishing precision. This was no accident. North was associated with the realm of the dead, while south was associated with the world of the living and the sun. The rising sun symbolized rebirth, and a pyramid facing east seemed to welcome a new day and new life for the pharaoh. Even the materials used in construction had symbolic significance. The white limestone that covered the outer walls of many pyramids reflected the sunlight, making the structure radiant and majestic. Granite, used for the inner chambers and sarcophagi, symbolized strength and eternity. The pyramid was not just a resting place, but also a center of worship. Mortuary temples were located around it, where priests performed rituals, made sacrifices, and recited prayers for the pharaoh. This ensured a continuous connection between the world of the living and the world of the dead, maintaining harmony and order. Thus, the pyramid was a multifaceted symbol. It embodied the pharaoh's power, his divine nature, and his striving for eternity. It was the repository of his soul and his earthly goods, a guiding star on his posthumous journey. And, of course, it was a testament to the profound spirituality of the ancient Egyptians, their belief in the inseparable connection between the earthly and divine worlds. This belief, expressed in such grandiose forms, continues to fascinate us to this day. Tools and Technologies, Secrets of Ancient Masters, a review of archaeological finds related to tools and a reconstruction of working methods. When studying the majestic structures of ancient Egypt, we inevitably ask ourselves, what tools and technologies did people use to construct these colossal stone structures? The answer lies in archaeological finds, which reveal a picture of astonishing skill and ingenuity. The ancient Egyptians didn't possess iron tools as we know them, but they mastered what was available to them. The primary materials used for making tools were stone, wood, and copper. To work hard rocks like granite, the Egyptians used harder stones such as dolerite. They made hammers and sledgehammers from these stones. These stones were extremely strong and heavy, allowing them to crush and chip away at rock. Imagine a worker striking a granite block with such a stone hammer with rhythmic force, gradually shaping it into the desired shape. This required not only physical strength, but also incredible endurance and patience. For finer work, such as limestone cutting, copper tools were used. Copper, being a softer metal, allowed for more precise cutting. Chisels, saws, and drills were made from copper. To make copper tools more durable, they could be tempered or alloyed with other metals, such as arsenic, to produce bronze. Copper saws may have had teeth that were periodically sharpened or replaced by inserting them into special grooves. Saws were most likely used with quartz sand, which served as an abrasive, helping to cut the stone. Stone hammers deserve special attention. They came in various sizes and shapes, depending on their purpose. Small hammers were used for precision work, while larger ones were used for rough work. Finds of such hammers, often with remains of wooden handles, allow us to imagine what they looked like and how they were used. Workers likely worked in teams, with one person holding the stone and the other striking with the hammer. Wood also played an important role. It was used to make levers, sleds for moving stone blocks, and wooden mallets. Levers allowed heavy stones to be lifted so they could be placed on wooden rollers or sleds. Sleds, in turn, could be lubricated with water or clay to reduce friction when moving blocks over sand or specially prepared roads. Drills were used to drill holes, for example, for fastenings or to create decorative elements. They could be made of either copper or stone. Copper drills likely worked with abrasive sand, rotating using a rope wound around an axle. Stone drills, simpler, may have been used for softer rocks. Ropes were also an important element in the work. They were made from plant fibers such as flax or papyrus. Strong ropes were necessary for lifting blocks, moving them, and creating various devices. Archaeological excavations near pyramids, such as those at Deir el-Medina, where the tomb-building artisans and craftsmen lived, have provided valuable insights into their daily lives and tools. Remains of workshops have been found there, along with a wide variety of tools: stone hammers, copper chisels, saws, drills, and the remains of wooden structures. These finds allow us to reconstruct the ancient builders' working methods with a high degree of certainty. Picture this: dawn over the desert. Thousands of people gather at the foot of a pyramid under construction. Workers, dressed in simple linen headbands, pick up their tools. Some are leveling stone blocks with chisels and hammers. Others are preparing sleds for moving new stones. Engineers and overseers consulting drawings on papyrus or ostraca direct the process. All this took place to the rhythmic sounds of shouts and instruments, creating an atmosphere of harmonious work. It's worth noting that the ancient Egyptians possessed a profound knowledge of geometry and astronomy, which allowed them to orient their pyramids and calculate the angles of their faces with incredible precision. This knowledge was likely passed down from generation to generation and was an integral part of their culture. Thus, the construction of the pyramids was not simply the result of brute force, but a complex engineering and organizational process based on profound knowledge and the skillful application of available technologies. Seemingly simple tools in the skilled hands of ancient craftsmen were transformed into instruments capable of creating eternity. Their labor, their ingenuity, and their faith in their abilities enabled the creation of monuments that delight us to this day. In the previous section, we saw how the skilled hands of ancient craftsmen, armed with simple yet effective tools, created eternity. Today, we will turn to those voices that whisper of more mysterious, less explainable ways of constructing the pyramids. These are stories that stir the imagination, but often lead us away from the solid ground of facts. In an era when the grandeur of the Egyptian pyramids still astounds, it's no surprise that a wide range of theories about their construction have emerged. Some see them as remnants of highly developed, now vanished civilizations. Others claim that only extraterrestrial beings possess the technology capable of lifting and placing these gigantic stone blocks. These theories, despite their popularity in popular culture, are not supported by archaeological data or scientific research. Let's try to understand why these ideas arise and why they are so appealing. First and foremost, of course, is scale. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, consists of approximately 2.5 million stone blocks, averaging around 2.5 tons. Some blocks, especially in the burial chamber, weigh tens of tons. For those accustomed to modern construction technologies, it's truly difficult to imagine how such a structure could have been erected without excavators, cranes, and powerful machinery.
Theories about extraterrestrial civilizations often rely on the supposed precision of their structures. Proponents of these ideas cite the pyramids' perfect orientation to the cardinal directions and their complex internal structure, which, they believe, could not have been constructed without advanced knowledge. However, as we have already mentioned, the ancient Egyptians possessed a profound understanding of astronomy and geometry. They could accurately determine the cardinal directions by observing the movement of the stars. Their knowledge of mathematics allowed them to calculate the angles of inclination and the dimensions of their structures with a high degree of precision. This knowledge was passed down from generation to generation, refined and applied in construction.
The notion of lost civilizations is also fueled by our desire to find answers to all questions. If we can't explain something with the facts we know, it's easier to attribute it to creators we know nothing about. It's a kind of deus ex machina that emerges when our own abilities seem inadequate. But archaeology, as a science, works with what can be found, examined, and verified. It's important to understand that the ancient Egyptians weren't just builders, but also thinkers, engineers, and scientists of their time. Their achievements were the result of centuries of development, accumulation of knowledge, and experience. They learned, experimented, made mistakes, and found solutions. We find evidence of this in their writings, in the remains of their settlements, and in the structures themselves. For example, research shows that wooden sleds were used to move stone blocks, likely placed on surfaces moistened with water or clay to reduce friction. Various ramp systems were used to lift the blocks. There are different theories about the exact form of these ramps, straight, spiral, or internal. It's likely that combinations of different methods were used, adapted to specific stages of construction. Regarding tools, as mentioned above, we find numerous indications of their use. Copper chisels and hammers, stone hammers, saws, and drills all have been found at construction sites. These tools, although seemingly simple, could have been used by skilled hands to perform very precise work. For example, for working granite, which is much harder than limestone, more durable tools were used, possibly with abrasive materials such as quartz sand. Let's focus on something often overlooked: the daily lives of the builders. They weren't slaves, as the outdated myth suggests, but rather hired laborers, artisans, engineers, and farmers who were brought in for construction during the Nile floods, when agricultural work was impossible. They lived in organized settlements and received food and medical care. Finds in settlements like Deir el-Medina, where the tomb builders in the Valley of the Kings lived, give us insight into their lives, their families, and their beliefs. They weren't oppressed slaves, but rather part of a society that valued labor and craftsmanship. So, when we hear theories suggesting alien intervention or the existence of unknown, highly advanced civilizations, it's worth remembering that these hypotheses, while fascinating, have no scientific basis. They arise from our admiration for the grandeur of the pyramids, and perhaps from a slight misunderstanding of the capabilities of ancient people. The reality, based on archaeological finds and scientific research, is no less astonishing. It shows us that the ancient Egyptians, relying on their knowledge, ingenuity, and the coordinated work of thousands of people, were able to accomplish something that still inspires awe. They were masters of their time, capable of building for centuries, using the resources and knowledge available to them. And herein, perhaps, lies the true magic of the pyramids, not in their enigmatic creators, but in the astonishing achievements of the ancient Egyptians themselves. Sometimes, when reflecting on the greatness of ancient civilizations, we tend to regard their achievements as unique, as if they were born in a vacuum. However, history teaches us that humanity has always strived to understand the world and embody its ideas in monumental forms. The pyramids, those majestic symbols of eternity, are no exception. While the Egyptian pyramids undoubtedly hold a special place in our imagination, their form and concept resonated with the hearts and minds of people across the ancient world. Let's begin our journey in Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, where the first cities arose around the 4th millennium BC. Here, in the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a culture developed that left us with the legacy of cuneiform writing, the Code of Hammurabi, and, of course, ziggurats. A ziggurat is essentially a pyramidal structure, but its purpose and form differed from those of the Egyptian pyramids. These were stepped towers built of mud brick with a temple at the top. Their purpose was to bring humanity closer to the gods and to raise prayers to heaven. The most famous example is the Great Ziggurat of Ur, built during the reign of King Ur-Nammu around 2150 BC. This grandiose structure, consisting of 3 tiers, reached a height of over 20 meters and served as the city's religious center. Unlike the Egyptian pyramids, which served as tombs for pharaohs, ziggurats were temples, places of worship for deities. Their construction also required considerable effort and organization, but the materials and methods were different. The use of mud brick, abundantly available in Mesopotamia, determined their appearance and durability. Let's travel across the ocean to the lands of Mesoamerica, where such great civilizations as the Mayans, Aztecs, and Teotihuacans flourished. Here, amidst dense jungles and fertile highlands, majestic pyramids were also erected. However, these pyramids had their own unique features.
They often served as foundations for temples located at the summit and were used for religious ceremonies, including human sacrifice. The Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan, built around the 1st century CE, is one of the most impressive examples. Its base is over 200 meters long, and its height reaches 60 meters. It was constructed of volcanic stone and faced with stucco. Another striking example are the Mayan pyramids, such as the Pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, built around 1250 CE. This pyramid is famous for its 4 staircases, each with 91 steps, and with the upper platform, the total number of steps reaches 365, symbolizing the number of days in a year. Mesoamerican pyramids, although sharing a common pyramidal shape with Egyptian ones, differed in their purpose, architectural details, and use of materials. They were an integral part of the religious and cosmological worldviews of these peoples. Interestingly, pyramidal structures are also found in other parts of the world. For example, in the state of Tamil Nadu in what is now India, pyramidal towers called vimanas remain, forming part of Hindu temples. The earliest known example is the Brihadishwara Temple in Tanjavur, built in the early 11th century CE. These structures, also featuring a stepped structure, served to house deities and conduct rituals. Their construction, as in Egypt, required a high level of craftsmanship and organization. Even in more remote regions, such as China, structures resembling pyramids are found. The Great Pyramid of China, the tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, built in the 3rd century BCE, is shaped like a truncated pyramid and is covered with earth, giving it the appearance of a hill. However, its internal structure and purpose as a tomb are reminiscent of the Egyptian pyramids. These examples from different cultures and eras demonstrate that the desire to create monumental structures in a pyramidal shape is universal to humanity. This desire likely stemmed from various factors: religious beliefs, the desire to exalt rulers, the quest to understand the cosmos, and to establish a connection with the divine. Each culture, faced with this challenge, found its own unique solutions, using available materials and technologies. Comparing Egyptian pyramids with the pyramid structures of other cultures helps us better understand not only the achievements of the ancient Egyptians, but also general trends in the development of human civilization. We see how different peoples, independently, arrived at similar architectural forms, striving to express their spiritual and social ideals. This diversity, despite the similarities in form, highlights the uniqueness of each culture and its inimitable contribution to world history. Studying these parallels allows us to see how deeply ingrained is the desire to leave a mark, to build something that will endure for centuries, something that will speak of us to future generations. Pyramids, anywhere in the world, are such timeless messages from the past. Studying ancient civilizations, like the one that left us the majestic pyramids of Egypt, is like slowly unraveling a mystery. Each new discovery, each result of painstaking research, brings us a piece of wisdom accumulated over millennia. Today, we'll explore how modern scientists, armed with cutting-edge technology, continue to uncover the secrets of these timeless monuments. Modern methods of pyramid research allow us to peer into places where ancient builders or even archaeologists of past centuries could not. Modern methods of pyramid research allow us to peer into places where ancient builders or even archaeologists of past centuries could not. One such powerful tool is ground-penetrating radar, or ground-penetrating radar. Imagine being able to see through solid rock without disturbing it. Ground-penetrating radar sends radio waves into the ground or stonework and then analyzes the reflected signals. Different materials, cavities, and voids all reflect these waves differently. Thus, scientists can discover hidden chambers, tunnels, or even differences in the density of building blocks without resorting to destructive excavations. This allows us to understand the pyramid's internal structure with incredible precision, revealing its hidden body without a single blow. Computer modeling also plays a crucial role. By collecting data from ground-penetrating radar, magnetometers, infrared scanners, and other instruments, scientists can create 3D models of the pyramids. These models allow us not only to visualize the structure, but also to walk through it virtually, testing various hypotheses about construction methods and the possible locations of hidden chambers. It's as if we could rebuild the pyramid in digital space, experimenting with different approaches to understand which was most effective for the ancient Egyptians. We can simulate how the load was distributed among the stones and how the lifting mechanisms might have been designed, based on physical laws and archaeological finds. Modern technologies allow us to study even the composition of stone and its origin with high precision.
Using spectral analysis, scientists can determine the quarry from which a given block was extracted. This helps reconstruct logistics routes and understand how enormous stone blocks were transported over significant distances. For example, the granite for the inner chambers of the Great Pyramid of Giza is known to have been transported from Aswan, located in southern Egypt, hundreds of kilometers from the construction site. Studying these granite blocks allows us to understand the sophistication of stone processing technologies at that time. Furthermore, radiocarbon dating methods applied to organic materials found near the pyramids help refine the construction chronology.
While the main construction dates of the Giza pyramids are known, for example, the Great Pyramid was built during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu around 2630 BCE. Finer details, such as the construction dates of auxiliary structures or later tombs, can be clarified using these methods. Equally important is studying the microclimate inside the pyramids. Using temperature and humidity sensors, scientists can understand how these monumental structures maintain their structure over millennia and how they respond to environmental changes. This gives us an idea of how sophisticated the design itself was and how it protected the burial chambers from external influences. The use of drones equipped with high-resolution cameras and thermal imagers allows for detailed studies of the pyramid's exterior surfaces, identifying cracks, traces of restoration, and changes over time that are invisible from the ground. These technologies open new horizons for understanding the construction history and subsequent events associated with these structures. It's important to note that modern research not only confirms ancient knowledge, but sometimes reveals completely unexpected facts. For example, studies of the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza using muon tomography, a method that uses cosmic particles for scanning, revealed the presence of previously unknown cavities. These discoveries, although they require further confirmation and interpretation, demonstrate that even the most studied monuments of the world still hold their secrets. All these modern methods, ground-penetrating radar, computer modeling, spectral analysis, radiocarbon dating, drones, and muon tomography, work in concert. They complement each other, providing scientists with a multifaceted picture of the past. This allows us not only to admire the grandeur of the pyramids, but also to understand how they were created, how they functioned, and what significance they held for their creators. Each such discovery is another step toward a deeper understanding of one of the most astonishing civilizations in human history, a civilization that left us a legacy of these stone testaments to its grandeur and aspiration for eternity. And this journey into the past, undertaken through science, is both calming and inspiring, a reminder of the boundless potential of the human mind and the pursuit of knowledge. The legacy of the pyramids extends far beyond ancient Egypt, deeply ingrained in the fabric of world culture and art. These majestic structures, built thousands of years ago, have become not just monuments to architectural genius, but also powerful symbols that continue to inspire and move humanity. The pyramids embody the idea of eternity, steadfastness, and the aspiration to something higher. Their monumental form, reaching toward the sky, recalls the connection between the earthly and the divine, the cycle of life and death, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The influence of pyramids can be traced across various cultures and eras. In art, they often appear as archetypes, personifying stability, strength, and ancient wisdom. Artists from ancient times to the present day have found their image an inexhaustible source of inspiration. Consider how frequently pyramidal forms appear in painting, sculpture, and architectural ornamentation. They are present in temple complexes, in the design of everyday objects, and even in the symbolism used in various societies. This is not simply a borrowing of form, but rather a deep inner recognition, a recognition of something fundamental, inherent in the very nature of things. Literature has also not remained untouched. Pyramids have become a metaphor for something vast, incomprehensible, and eternal. They appear in novels, poems, and essays, serving as a backdrop for epic events, or as a symbol for depicting human ambitions, aspirations, and fears. Writers use their imagery to emphasize the grandeur of their designs, to create an atmosphere of mystery and grandeur, and to reflect on the frailty of human life in the face of eternity. Recall how in some works, the ancient Egyptians, the builders of the pyramids, are portrayed not simply as laborers, but as bearers of sacred knowledge, as people who have comprehended the secrets of the universe. Architecture is perhaps the field where the influence of pyramids is most clearly felt. Although direct copies of Egyptian pyramids are rare, their principles and symbolism are reflected in many structures. Modern buildings, seeking to express ideas of strength, stability, and grandeur, often employ pyramidal or stepped forms.
This can be either an overt reference or a more subtle, unconscious influence. Architects, consciously or not, draw from the pyramid's image a sense of order, harmony, and monumentality. For example, in the late 20th century, a period of active exploration of new forms and symbols, the pyramid became a popular design element for public buildings, museums, and memorials. It carries a sense of history while simultaneously appearing modern and relevant. Pyramids occupy a special place in the context of the symbolism of eternity. For the ancient Egyptians, the pharaoh's tomb was not just a resting place, but also a machine for ensuring eternal life. The pyramid's shape is believed to have symbolized the rising rays of the sun, which could carry the pharaoh's soul to heaven. This idea of eternal return, immortality, and the continuity of life after death has resonated across a wide range of cultures. The pyramid has become a universal symbol, understood without words. It reminds us that, despite the transience of our lives, there is something more, enduring, something that transcends our existence. The pyramid's influence on global culture is also evident in how they shape our understanding of ancient civilizations. They have become synonymous with ancient Egypt, its calling card. When we think of pharaohs, hieroglyphs, and mummies, the pyramids are often the first image that comes to mind. They serve as a kind of anchor that helps us connect with the distant past and feel a connection to time. These stone giants, enduring for millennia, give us a sense of the scale of history and an understanding of how small our lives are compared to eternity. It's important to note that perceptions of the pyramids have changed over time. In antiquity, the Greeks and Romans admired them as wonders of the world. But their understanding was rather superficial, based on superficial splendor. With the development of science and archaeology, our knowledge of the pyramids has become deeper and more nuanced. We now understand them not only as tombs, but also as complex engineering and architectural structures, reflecting the cosmological and religious beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. This new understanding has further enriched their cultural heritage. Today, the pyramids continue to attract the attention of scientists, artists, writers, and simply curious individuals. They remind us that humanity has always strived to create something great, something that will outlive itself. They inspire us to our own achievements, to strive for perfection, to search for the meaning of life. Pyramids are more than just stones arranged in a certain shape. They are a message from the past that continues to resonate in the present, reminding us of our connection to our ancestors and our place in the eternal flow of time. Their monumentality and mystery engender a sense of awe, and their longevity affirms the strength of the human spirit and the desire for immortality. They are an eternal reminder that even in the most distant past, people possessed astonishing wisdom, engineering talent, and a profound understanding of the world, striving to leave their mark on history that will be visible through the millennia. This is a legacy that lives on, inspiring and enriching the culture of all humanity. And so we come to the end of our journey into the world of the ancient Egyptian pyramids. We've come a long way, from the first humble tombs to the grandiose structures of the Giza Plateau, from the mysteries of their construction to their enduring influence on world culture.
What can we learn from this journey? What lessons have the ancient builders taught us for the modern world? Above all, the pyramids demonstrate the power of vision and perseverance. The ancient Egyptians had a clear goal: to ensure eternal life for their pharaoh and maintain order in the afterlife. This goal, reinforced by deep faith and an understanding of the cosmos, allowed them to mobilize enormous resources and overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. For us, this is a lesson in the importance of having a clear vision, setting ambitious goals, and relentlessly pursuing them, despite obstacles. Secondly, the construction of the pyramids is a striking example of brilliant planning and organization. Managing thousands of workers, quarrying and transporting millions of stone, and providing food and shelter, all of this required a highly sophisticated level of logistics and coordination. The ancient Egyptians demonstrated that even without modern technology, complex management systems can be created if there is a clear understanding of the tasks and efficient allocation of resources. This lesson is relevant to any project, whether constructing a building, launching a new product, or organizing a major event. Thirdly, the pyramids teach us the value of craftsmanship and the pursuit of perfection. The quality of the stonework, the precision of the angles, the intricacy of the internal structure, all of this testifies to the exceptional skill of the artisans and engineers of the time. They weren't simply performing a task. They were striving for perfection, pouring a piece of their soul into their creations. This is a reminder that true greatness is achieved through painstaking work, constant improvement, and the pursuit of perfection in all endeavors. Moreover, the pyramids remind us of the importance of preserving knowledge and traditions. The ancient Egyptians passed on their knowledge and skills from generation to generation, preserving and developing construction techniques, engineering solutions, and religious beliefs. Their success was made possible by their accumulated experience and ability to learn from their predecessors. In today's world, where information changes at an incredible rate, it is important not to forget the fundamental knowledge and values accumulated by humanity over many centuries. The pyramids also serve as a reminder of our place in time. Looking at these ancient structures, we realize how short our lives are compared to eternity. This is humbling, yet inspiring. We understand that we too can leave our mark, contribute to history, and create something meaningful for future generations. It is a call to responsibility, to living our lives mindfully, and to strive to make the world a better place. Finally, the pyramids show us that even the most complex mysteries can be solved with patience, perseverance, and a scientific approach. Modern research, using cutting-edge technology, is continually revealing new facets of these ancient monuments. This gives us hope that other mysteries of the past can be uncovered, and that human knowledge will continue to expand. In conclusion, the pyramids are more than just ancient stones. They are symbols of the human quest for perfection, eternity, and knowledge. They inspire us to great achievements, teach us to plan and organize, value craftsmanship, and preserve knowledge. They remind us of our place in time and our connection to the past.
And most importantly, they give us confidence in the limitless potential of the human mind and spirit. The journey into the world of the pyramids is coming to an end, but their legacy lives on, enriching our culture and inspiring us to new discoveries. May the serenity and wisdom of the ancient builders resonate in our hearts, reminding us that even the most ambitious goals are achievable if approached with clear vision, perseverance, and a deep respect for the past. We conclude our journey through the world of ancient Egyptian pyramids. Throughout this exploration, we delved into the history, architecture, technology, and culture that enabled the creation of these monumental structures. We saw how, from the modest mastabas erected in the early period, Egyptian civilization progressed to the creation of grandiose step pyramids, and then to the perfection of the smooth faces of the Great Pyramid of Giza. We pondered how ancient craftsmen, lacking modern tools, were able to undertake such large-scale projects. We analyzed the engineering solutions in lifting and installing gigantic stone blocks, as well as the methods used to process the materials. We learned about the origins of limestone and granite and the routes used to transport them from remote quarries. Particular attention was paid to the labor force. We dispelled outdated notions that the pyramids were built exclusively by slaves, drawing on archaeological finds that attest to the lives, customs, and organization of free laborers. The complexity of logistics and resource management required to provide thousands of people with everything they needed was emphasized. We also touched on the profound religious and symbolic significance of the pyramids. They were not just tombs, but also a link between the world of the living and the world of the gods, reflecting the cosmogonic beliefs of the ancient Egyptians and their belief in the afterlife. We examined the tools and technologies used by ancient builders and attempted to reconstruct their working methods. Alternative theories, although popular, have not been supported by scientific research, were discussed and analyzed. We have seen that pyramidal structures are not an exclusively Egyptian phenomenon, finding their analogues in other ancient cultures, such as Mesopotamia and Mesoamerica, which highlights the universality of the desire to create monumental forms. Modern research using cutting-edge technology continues to uncover new secrets of the pyramids, enriching our understanding of the past. Finally, we have come to understand the pyramids' enduring legacy, their influence on global culture, art, and architecture, as a symbol of eternity and the human pursuit of perfection. The journey into the world of the pyramids ends, but their wisdom and grandeur remain with us. They teach us planning, organization, and perseverance. They remind us of the power of the human mind and spirit, of the possibility of achieving the most ambitious goals with a clear vision and deep respect for the past. These ancient stones, enshrining millennia of history, serve as an eternal reminder that even the most difficult challenges hold the potential for great achievements. May the serenity and wisdom of the ancient builders resonate in our hearts, inspiring us to meaningfully live the present and create a future worthy of eternity.